Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Dynamics Fortnite Fridays.
Good morning, everyone. Bart, it's great to see you.
Likewise, Lauren. How have you been? It's been a month now.
It's been a month now. I was on PTO our last session, so I'm feeling a little under the weather, but I'm happy to be back today.
Glad to have you back, and hope you can go get some rest and get all patched up before next week after the show.
Agreed, agreed.
Well, did you come with a cool joke to get us all kicked off?
I sure did. It's a bit topical. So, why is Lent the best time to run a marathon?
Best time to run a marathon. Uh, it's kind of something about a meet. I don't know. What do you
Oh,
got?
really got you on this one. That's when you fast.
Oh, that's when you fast. I love it. I love it. Using a little slang on the you part. I love it.
That's right.
Uh, Mine was somewhat topical, although maybe it's a little past now. But I was going to say, I was really looking forward to Valentine's Day, but there was one kind of flower I really didn't really want to get. You think of what that one was?
Hmm. I should know this. My mom was a florist. I don't know. You got me.
A cauliflower. Dumb. I know. Anyway,
It made me laugh.
all right. Well, here we go. Let's just jump right in. So, with all the things that I gathered around Power Platform, let's run through them. So, there was a announcement that we have a Copilot connector checker. So if you're not familiar with Copilot connectors, they used to be called Microsoft Graph connectors. They're what connect data sources into the Microsoft Graph so that we update the semantic index and give M365 Copilot all the data from these external systems so that people that are just interacting with the Copilot experience can look at these data sources along with the normal stuff Microsoft updates, like Outlook and Teams and all the other stuff that goes on in the M365 world, SharePoint and all that stuff. So if you were about to hook up one of these Copilot connectors, this checker tool will allow you to put in a little bit of information and it'll just run through a whole bunch of checks to try to tell you, is what you just tried to configure healthy, optimized, secure, all those kind of things, and spit out a result. At this very first release, the only thing that it is analyzing is the ServiceNow knowledge area, but we plan to expand this checker tool very rapidly across a lot of the other data sources that are Copilot connectors out there. So I think it's a great idea. I hope to see it expand really quickly and wanted to at least publicize it a little bit. The next one is a great idea. And this was a feature I didn't even see announced, but I am very excited about. That knowledge in Copilot Studio is a super important way to be able to surface information from various places. And one of the really important ones a lot of times is a website. And so a publicly facing website can have a treasure trove of great stuff that you would like the agent to be able to reference. And the tighter you can keep that scoped, the better and more relevant the results will be. But one of the problems we've had is you always had to just specify an exact URL. You couldn't sort of parameterize that and put a variable in that could look at other things and slug in an appropriate value to scope the website to a particular language or a particular region or a particular product type or a particular whatever else. So now that particular type of knowledge, a website in Copilot Studio, you can use a variable as part of the web URL or the whole web URL, depending on how you want to try to think of what you put in there. Solves a big problem there, and we are very rapidly planning to introduce that same capability for SharePoint so that you can more easily scope SharePoint sites for the knowledge part of what your Copilot Studio agent is acting on. So super excited about that. Wanted to make sure and publicize it a little again too. Power Pages. For a little while, we have started putting together the special Power Pages server-side logic API infrastructure that will allow the server to do a lot of the things that you used to have to do through liquid tags on the kind of client side of the page itself. And there have been a few improvements made to that, like caching, super important for performance reasons. But there are times you just don't want to deal with cache because you have to present the up to the second correct information on the website when somebody hits a page. And if you want to bypass the cache, you can now do that. If you do a thing called using the standard data model, that there's now support for that built right into the client-side APIs. There's also local debug support if you're using Visual Studio Code, the full-on desktop, not the web version, but the desktop version, that you can now bring the code local and debug sort of running the page on your local machine instead of having to bring it into the cloud in order to test these server-side APIs. So pretty good stuff if you are a Power Pages developer. If you are one of the admins and you have the Center of Excellence kit installed, the February release is out. Go install it to bring the updates in. It's mostly just bug fix stuff, but bug fixes are always a great thing to have in your kit if you still rely on it. Another Power Page thing that we have in preview supported a thing called a single page app as something that you could go develop in your own code base and host in the midst of the rest of the Power Pages that are sort of dynamically generated from the Dataverse stuff. And that is now generally available. So if you want to build your single page architected sites, that you can now do that in production mode. So great to have that ready for real-time use. There's also a brand new MCP server. You're probably going to hear in this show lots of MCP servers over the next 6 to 12 months. We now have a Power Apps MCP server in public preview that will allow you right now to do the kinds of things that we built right into both Canvas apps and model-driven apps kind of natively into the UI before, that were sort of hard-coded, and bring that functionality out into an MCP server that you can put into an agent to allow it to sort of feed whatever you decide to build for form filling. And we plan to add lots and lots and lots of other capabilities to this MCP server, lots of new tools and a few other things probably over time. We started with form filling because it was so popular and thought that was a great thing to abstract out of the kind of hard code and into this MCP server architecture. We've also enhanced, when we did that, the agent feed capability, which is mostly a model-driven app thing, but I think it's possible to bring that into a Canvas app. I haven't tried that, but I know it's there in a lot of different model-driven apps. But if you use this MCP server, it enhances the agent feed capability as well. So things like that are going to get added over time. So if you add this MCP server, your agents will just get new capabilities as we change the server, without you having to go change a bunch of things and do it. Well, you'll probably want to still test when those things change, but you don't have to go refactor your code because we'll just be bringing the capabilities into that MCP server. So use it for at least testing right now since it's in public preview, but when it goes GA, hopefully we can have you using that in production mode in the near future as well. If you are either an enterprise architect or even really just a developer of the enterprise grade versions of agentic capabilities in your organization, especially if you're using Copilot Studio, that we have got a lot of updated guidance on both the right kinds of architectures to use to build your agents, and then specifically in Copilot Studio, how to think about a lot of the other enterprisey stuff other than just how to architect it, like how to monitor it and how to update it securely over time and do ALM and some of the other things, making sure you're using responsible AI practices as development architectures, not just the architectures, but how the functionality of it all works. So pretty cool stuff that we keep updating and trying to make better and better for you guys to use. And I thought it was worth publicizing that we have been doing a lot of work updating a lot of that stuff. Evaluations have been getting quite a little bit of love lately inside of the product, and even Copilot Studio Kit in its last update that I talked about 2 weeks ago received a new capability inside of the kit to do oh, the word just left me, rubrics inside of the evaluations. So I thought it was pretty cool that someone out here, that I think it was Bolger, is that right? Or Holger Embry, went out and sort of evaluated, well, where are the scenarios where that Copilot Studio kit actually was needed, and where should you just use agent evaluation that's built right into the product because there's kind of nothing else to install or configure. You can just use it right while you're making your agent in the UI. So if you are doing those evaluation things, pay attention to this and see what he came up with, because it was pretty helpful stuff. Another pretty slick idea is to make sure that you think about whether having the agent remember important things about either you as a user or the organization that you belong to, or other things that are going to help it be a more relevant, quicker acting agent because of the things it remembers, that you have the ability to do all of that in Copilot Studio. And the best place to do a lot of that stuff often turns out to be Dataverse, but not always. And I think Sultan does a really nice job of breaking out not only kind of why it matters, but the three different ways that you're going to think about things for short-term memory, for long-term memory, and for episodic memory, and in terms of why those different patterns matter. And then different architectural patterns that you'll use when building your agents to add that memory to your agent. And short-term memory has been around for quite a while and doesn't even require Dataverse, that you just use variables for that. But kind of all the other patterns, you're going to store the data somewhere, and it might be Dataverse with things you do. It might even be some third-party tools that he breaks out a little bit later that can do a little bit more sophisticated job, just require a little bit more infrastructure up front. So pay attention to that as a way to make better, smarter, faster, more relevant Copilot Studio agents for your user base. The Power Platform team, or maybe the Power Platform team overall released a nice blog post talking about some of the recent innovations they've come out with. And I've talked about quite a few of these on the show, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time doing this. Just think I will highlight a couple. And one of them is in model-driven apps, there's going to be I guess there now is in preview mode, the ability to just expose the M365 Copilot full-featured agent, the whole thing, right in context in that fly outside pane. It's not just whatever you built in Copilot Studio. You can actually surface the entire M365 Copilot infrastructure there, that I believe even gives you access to agents within it. Like you can use researcher, or you can use analyst or whatever right in that side pane without having to jump out of your model-driven app in order to use it. So pretty slick, and it should be getting context from the rest of the app in that flyout pane that you can actually use M365 Copilot to kind of reference if you need to. We just talked about the Power Apps MCP server. One thing that a couple things here in Canvas apps, especially, that we've got a new card control that is faster, more efficient, and probably a little easier to use. We also have copy and paste of themes. If you had a theme that you liked, but you just want to make a couple tweaks, you can now copy, paste, and then make a couple tweaks, and you're off and running with that theme to be able to do things with. Also in Canvas apps, a confirm function. If you haven't seen that, super simple idea, been needed for a while. And I'm glad we finally have it in the PowerFX tool belt to have that confirm function out there. For the platform things, many people have for a long time wanted to clean up their default environment. And there have been lots of patterns out there for especially Power Automate flows and full Canvas apps that were standalone. And there's been ways you can put them into a solution, move the solution out, and put it in whatever environment you want. You couldn't move SharePoint forms that were customized. They stayed in the default environment. You could switch and start using a custom environment to power the SharePoint experience, but that only applied to new SharePoint forms that were created after you turned that feature on. The old ones still lived in the default environment, and you couldn't move them without breaking them. There is now a way in public preview to start doing that stuff. So pay attention if that's important to you in your governance strategy. Talked last time about running code apps generally available in Power Apps now. Super slick feature. And then there's all sorts of stuff between training and learn documentation and administration out here. And it's just nice to see all that in one spot to make sure that you are paying attention to the things that are important to you. All right, let's go through the last of these pretty quickly. If you haven't tried using Playwright to do some automated testing, it's great that we're building some of these tools directly into either a kit or the product itself. But Playwright's kind of this universal tool that can pretty much let you test whatever UI you want to, whether that's some sort of chat interface or a full-fledged, Power App, whether that's a model-driven or a Canvas app. Playwright kind of understands how to work with all of that stuff. And so this is some pretty nice guidance on how to think about using Playwright in a Dynamics context, but that would work with any model-driven app. And you can do the same thing with Canvas apps or with Copilot Studio agents or other things like that. The one thing that I don't think it really talks about is that there is also now a Playwright MCP server. And if you stand up that Playwright MCP server, it gets even easier because you just kind of stand it up and then you just give it some instructions and it can take off and run through a whole bunch of tests just with some instructions, and it figures out what it needs to do a little bit more dynamically. So play around with that a little bit too if you want to. So that's why I put in the parentheses, thinking about using the MCP server version of it. I've done it in VS Code and been very, very impressed with how it worked. I haven't actually made a full-fledged Copilot Studio agent out of it yet. Graham Hosking, longtime MVP in the Power Platform realm, has put together a new tool out there that is an MCP server that he has open sourced that can pull Teams meeting transcripts out of the Graph API and make them available to agents in Copilot Studio to interact with and do all kinds of questions and figure out what all you want to know about what happened in some given meeting. He also mentioned something that I talked about last time, that there is this multi-tenant agent preview that lets you deploy agents across tenants. So a couple of cool features Graham calls out there, looking for a little more improvement in that over time to get us closer to general availability, but it's super cool that these capabilities are out there and people are doing neat things with them. Couple things just came out yesterday that I noticed. One is if you're interested in using Grok's AI models or XAI models, what Grok is kind of their flagship, we now have allowed that in the M365 realm. You can turn it on in that admin center. And once you do that, you can also make it available in preview environments in Power Platform for Copilot Studio to use, that those are actually in our available ways to do things just like the OpenAI models and the Anthropic models. So we're just trying to double down on this power of choice in figuring out what customers can decide to do with using the right model for the right job without having to always jump into Foundry to be able to do it. And we've always got that option, but sometimes just having them right in the picker is worthwhile to let people make some of that choice without some of the extra overhead. And last thing I've got that I didn't know about until I read this post, that now in Copilot Studio, right in the Copilot Studio UI, when you go to the three dots that are right up there by the publish and the settings area, there is a way to kick off a pipeline deployment of this agent to another environment. You do want to make sure that you are doing good solution management before you do that, and that you've made sure your agent is in the right solution and that you have all the right components in that solution before you kick it off. But if you have been doing good solution management, awesome that you can just do it without having to jump into any other place. Just kick off the deployment process with whatever pipeline you've defined, and it'll move your agent from environment 1 to environment 2, or even further, depending on how you set your pipelines up. So fantastic capability there. And with that, I am going to hand it over to Lauren to do her part of the rest of the show. So thanks, Lauren. Take it away.
Yeah, amazing, Bart. Those are a ton of great updates. I don't have as many as you do today. You just confirm that you can see my screen?
You've got it all going on.
All right, perfect. So starting out, there's some updates in BC that we have. These are hyper local. So we have 3 new updates in Czechia. These will be in public preview in March. One of them being the ability to adjust VAT in local currency on sales documents, another to align VAT periods with Microsoft's standard functionality, and then a new user setup lines table for users in Czechia. So, these are some hyper-specific country updates that all align with their VAT functionality. We also have an update that's going to be in public preview for March as well, for transferring journal line descriptions to bank statements in BC. So this actually addresses a current limitation in the existing Create Payment Journal from Bank Statement functionality, where the description field on payment journal lines is unchanged when the account number is manually modified. So this behavior is now going to be controlled by the Keep Description field. Previously, the functionality might not have suited all users, especially those who expected the description field to update based on new account selections. So we've added this functionality to transfer journal line descriptions in bank statements. Next, we've got, let's see here, in projects, we have Project Ops users will now be able to enable set-based performance improvements for project adjustments. This is going to be in GA in March. In the 10.0.46 and 10.0.47 releases, multiple improvements were made in the area of project adjustments to implement set-based processing for improved performance. Now, when working with a large number of transactions, users are going to be able to see a more responsive UI in several areas, from transaction selection to the final submission to batch for processing. And a set of 10 different changes are enabled automatically, resolving things like performance bottlenecks that were really slowing down parts of the adjustment setup, processing, and the completion process. Then let's see, next here, we're announcing the end of support for D365 project service automation on the US government cloud beginning March 31st, 2027. That sounds like an eternity away, but it'll be next year. D365 Project Ops has been available in US government cloud since December 2025, but beginning next year into March, Microsoft's no longer going to support project service automation on GCC environments. There will not be any more feature enhancements, updates, bug fixes, or other updates to this offering, and any support ticket logged for the project service automation application on GCC will be closed with instructions to upgrade to Project Ops. So we strongly encourage all PSA customers on GCC environments to start planning your upgrade process as soon as possible so you can take advantage of the many new Project Ops features. All right, and then the last thing I have in this section here is our quality evaluation agents conversation capabilities. These became GA this month. This tool is an AI-led evaluation framework that enables consistent quality oversight and automates quality evaluations across customer interactions. This tool, it really continues to evolve with key upcoming enhancements across the evaluation framework, and this includes things like multi-language support, criteria versioning, the ability to flag critical questions, simulation capabilities, knowledge source adherence. Those are just a few examples of those enhancements with this capability. And then I only have a couple of updates with finance and supply chain. So one being our supplier communications agent. This feature, we finally have a GA date for this. It's going to be in June 2026. This has been a really fun tool to play around with in our demo environments and in public preview as well. It's been in public preview since last year. It's an agent that collaborates and follows up with vendors, manually updates POs, and manages PO change requests based on user-defined rules. So we have a GA date for this tool now. And then the last feature here is around asset management. So coming to GA in March, we have our auto reporting production tool with electronic sensors. Manufacturers can augment production equipment by adding electronic sensors that will automatically report production progress in real time, such as updates like report is finished, for example. And these will be reported directly to their teams. Admins can configure the system by mapping each of these sensors to a specific machine or resource and or operation, choosing reporting intervals and assigning unit conversion factors. So again, this will be in GA in March 2026. This just came out in public preview in January. And I had a couple other things that I didn't realize we had covered last week, so we took those out. But then we have a list of long solution updates here as well, along with 4 different links we set here for places you can look to find out some of the details of these updates. So, M365 Admin Center, Customer Insights, Finance and Supply Chain Release Schedule as well. So take a look at those if you want to get any more information on these solution updates. But that is all I have for today, Bart. We're actually on time.
That's unreal. Dan and I never could accomplish that. So great job, Lauren.
Dan's a chatty one, so yeah.
It's usually me that was causing us to go over. Anyway, I hope you get to feeling better. And thanks everyone for tuning in to another edition. We'll see everyone in a couple of weeks.
Thanks so much, Bart.
Bye.
Bye-bye.